There are a lot of games out there that can get by strictly on cozy vibes. At least for me. But honestly, my opinion of what constitutes cozy might be distinctly different than most's.
This is fine. This is chill. This is cool.
I think most people would agree that Stardew or Animal Crossing hold the crown for Cozy Game King. Both of them highlight one of the most important factors of cozy gaming, the collectathon. Will each of them approach it a little differently? Both of them boil down to get the thing, aesthetically display the thing, feel good about the achievement of having the thing, and then move on to getting the next thing. These kind of tropes have become so popular in the zeitgeist of modern gaming that they've even trickled their way into places you might not even expect. Worthless attachments on your guns? Check. Buying living spaces in games that truly have no need or meaningful interactions within them? Yep. Fishing? Oh god. Please. I can't learn another fishing minigame. We could potentially go on and on here until I'm grasping at straws, but I think you get the point. It's not even a bad thing, and I'm not complaining. Introducing systems and mechanics like this to games like these kind of in a way feels like going back to our roots in complicated but purposeful game design built on interactive systems, like baking bread in Arx Fatalis. Speaking of, Vane is an upcoming zombie survival sandbox game that recently released a playtest demo through Steam. While it's an early access build with quite a bit of rough around the edges look to it, there's also a lot of promise here. So I won't be too critical of anything that I think is just a bug or a par for the course early access jank. I'm also only really going to be judging this game from a single player perspective. As much as I wanted to get a proper feel of like real multiplayer, there just really wasn't enough concurrent players at the time of me recording this to do that. I did manage to play for a little while with some friends on a private server, just fun for a bit, but I might have an unpopular opinion here. I actually enjoy playing these kind of simulator games solo. I like the slow grind, and the way that multiplayer has to balance a character needing to sleep in these kind of games kinda irks me, but that's another topic for another video. The game clearly takes a lot of inspirations from Project Zomboid in its approach to design. Vehicles have a fairly detailed mechanic system with parts that you can salvage, replace. Both the electrical grid and the water line will eventually fail, leaving you to make do with generators or rain collectors. Bullets and magazines are individually managed, have to be loaded, and the game progresses through days, months, and years while cycling through dynamic weather and seasons. Vane also pulls out some interesting Bethesda game inspirations in the form of its leveling by use skill system, outright stealing the lockpicking minigame from Fallout, and something else we'll get to later. The lockpicking minigame is fine, if not a little bit too easy, but the skill system really scratched an itch for me that I didn't even know that I had. Yeah, I do want to level my driving up to 100, thank you. Why?
Going 80 on a fucking ATV. 81. Oh, shit.
You got this. You're in full control. Oh, God. You just...
Oh, no.
In all seriousness, idly grinding skills like this as if you're playing RuneScape is one of my least favorite parts of Zomboid, but I kind of found it to be endearing here. One of the reasons was because that I found that I wasn't running into as many skill-checking roadblocks as Zomboid has, though I saw it as a little less annoying. Like I could jumpstart a car without needing to grind out mechanics and electronics. It also helped that the character creator offers you some pretty solid jumpstarts into a customizable set of skill paths right off the bat. So I started my first game on the standard game mode settings, and after creating our finest American hero here, I set out on killing a few zombies and learning the ropes before getting out on my journey. What struck me at first was how beautiful the game was. Not the details exactly, but the full picture, the whole composition. The vibes in this game are immaculate. Vane is set in Saranac, New York.
Saranac.
near where I lived for 4 years while I was going to school, and while it's an early representation of the game, I found it to be a pretty nostalgic look back for me. The winding, hilly back roads, oppressive springtime fog, middle of nowhere feeling that upstate New York has. It's clear that because of how much this game wants you to invest in the minutiae of it all, the developers really wanted to make those small moments feel as atmospheric as possible, and I think they really knocked it out of the park here when it comes to presentation. Whether it's waking up to rain pattering against your nearby window, spotting a zombie through a window somewhere, or being able to just sit and watch a movie together with some friends. This game really sets a compelling stage and creates an environment that kind of feels livable. And yeah, that's right, the developers included the option for you to plug full videos into the game that can be played on any TV found within the world. Well, it's just a fun little gimmick right now. I could see this having some serious fun potential in the realm of like a roleplay server down the road. It's pretty cool. The lighting feels really well done, and it was nice to have a flashlight that wasn't totally worthless either. The flashlight on your phone isn't as good as the flashlight you're going to find on the ground. That's even a nice little touch. When the power grid is still active, the streetlights and other outdoor lighting really add ambiance to the nighttime. Oh god, I said we'll get there. Anyways, after finding a truck and then another, better truck, I set out on scavenging and collecting gear, throwing it all into the bed of my truck as I explored. While I was still captured by how smooth the game felt, one thing was beginning to bug me. Zombies kind of just fall over the second they're touched by a moving car, killing them immediately. Before I get yelled at, yeah, I know there are sandbox settings, and I'm curious if some of those settings can change whether zombies are affected by cars as severely as they are right now. But I was invested at this point in my current run, and I wanted to see it out. So that meant, of the few zombies that the normal settings spawned, if I wanted to clear out a little area to scavenge, all I really had to do is slowly drive my car around in the parking lot until zombies fell over. But that's boring. We're the survivor of a zombie apocalypse here. A real American hero. Alright. I told you we'd get here. We gotta step aside for a moment. Well, the game seems to have taken a lot of solid inspiration from a variety of Bethesda games. The combat in this game initially struck me as a little too familiar. Yeah, I'm killing mud crabs again. It genuinely does feel a bit like Morrowind. You move back, you dodge their attack, you move forward, you hit them with your attack, you kite them in kind of the same way. It's one of my favorite games of all time, but it's also probably one of the worst examples of melee combat in a game ever. Thankfully, the gunplay feels good enough to mostly make up for this, but at the same time, that's kind of a double-edged sword here. Yeah, the guns aren't loud enough. I think this is mostly, at least right now, a feature of the early access. I think the sound radius for guns is tied to the sandbox setting that governs general zombie hearing. But in my opinion, the sound of you running versus the sound of you firing a shotgun, two very different things. In a game like Zomboid, guns are generally either a last resort or specifically a noise-making tool, able to get you out of a tight spot if you really need to, or being able to draw the attention of a horde in a particular direction. I'd like to see that sort of implementation here in the future. While it might feel restrictive at first, ultimately it lends itself to player agency and problem solving in an open world environment. As it stands right now, the zombies in Vane are even less of a threat than the zombies in original DayZ. And very quickly, while we're talking about the guns in this game, it's kinda odd to me that by default the headshot damage is set to be equal to body damage. You can easily just change this in the sandbox settings. But again, all that's okay. Like I said from the jump, we're here to experience the vibes. The sun sets. the views.
You're like wearing work boots and fucking booty shorts.
How's this look?
It's pretty good, dude.
Almost getting killed by wolves. I continued on and eventually found an RV parked in some guy's driveway. Having already collected a bunch of spare car parts to fix my truck up, I immediately got excited, only to get hit by the first real road bump I felt in the game. I just had the wrong tools. Sure, I had basic cutting tools, a wrench, and even a power drill, but I needed an industrial cutting tool, advanced welding tools, and a better power drill. Alright, that's fine. Tools in this game have like a tier system. So I unloaded what I could from the truck and set back out on the road in search of better tools. Having only played a couple hours at this point, felt like there were plenty of places to explore. More warehouses to plunder, garages to go through. But as I drove around passing the open garage doors of buildings that I had previously looted, occasionally driving down a road that warned me I was going to exit the demo before flipping and sometimes totaling my car, I realized the world was a little smaller than I thought it to be initially. Which again, I'm not complaining about that. It's an early access demo right now. But I do feel at least a little bit justified in feeling like I wasted my time looting just about the entire map only to never find the one tool I really needed to fix the RV's chassis, an industrial grinder. I can't lie, that feeling of defeat, of knowing that I'll never be that guy living in his van down by the river, it broke me. I had to have it, and at this point, I wasn't above cheating. At least for one item. So after some console command fuckery, I added a grinder to my inventory and fixed up the RV as best I could. Pretty much everything but the radio. I didn't have a soldering iron, I couldn't find one, and I wasn't about to cheat again. So with the RV fixed, we were back on the road, experiencing those vibes again. Having looted a bunch of fishing equipment, I was off in search of somewhere that I could park my RV, set up a little camp, start fishing. Canned goods and fresh food were steadily getting harder and harder to come by, and I was gonna need a steady food source. That said, it was kinda weird how many fresh pizza crusts that I found in storage totes and random sheds. I assume that they're tagged with some kind of junk label within the engine, and that's why they're there, but it did make the early game a little bit easier for me. Then after a bit of searching, I settled on a spot by the lake. Along the way, I discovered that you could move furniture on top of your car in an effort to move them. And while this felt extremely buggy and jank, the idea that you can move storage crates into the bed of your truck to increase its inventory or do this is kind of a cool feature, if not a bug. So I hauled these benches, a log rack, campfire, over to the lake and we set up a cozy little fishing spot. From here, even though my character was only a week or so into the game, I felt like I had really experienced most of everything the Vane playtest had to offer. I had a source of food and water, zombies were pretty much a non-issue, and ultimately I was satisfied with the time I had spent setting everything up. Like Zomboid, Vane, or any of these survival games, there usually comes a point in time where you can just sit back and go, well, what else? It's not a fault of the game itself. Some people don't like the endgame of World of Warcraft either. And while the two genres are entirely different, that sentiment about a boring grind or a general lack of endgame content applies to both. But again, that's okay, because for the majority of people in both demographics, the fun is in the early game. We're going to get into a little bit of my opinion here, but I think this is kind of an opinion that a lot of people hold. Just like how leveling a character from 1 through 60 in Warcraft is a more engaging experience than trying to assemble raids or grind for marginally better gear, the first 3 or so days of Zomboid are generally where the most engaging content is. It might not be the most in-depth content, and the early games of both often don't even rely on the complex systems that the games have set up for people in for the long haul. But in my opinion, the stress of knowing that you need to find a pack of cigarettes, a gun, and a backpack before getting the hell out of town beats mindlessly sawing logs into planks or, oh god, fishing minigames. So on that note, I'd really like to see the developers focus their efforts here on that level of interactivity and emerging gameplay that makes those first couple of days so entertaining. Some ways I think this could be achieved would be creating more dense commercial or urban areas, something that I'm sure is coming along the way in development, but it's desperately needed to create that sense of an early game rush and getting in and out of an infested town before it gets too overrun. Continuing that thread, the distribution of zombies could use a little bit of work. It's totally fine as a placeholder right now, even if I personally think the number of zombies on the standard settings is a little low. But focusing on creating a more realistic sprawl of zombies with proper hordes that can migrate between areas would go a long way in securing that feel of authenticity. Overall though, I'm very impressed with what I've seen here. While I hate to continue to call it a Zomboid clone, the similarities here are a little bit stark. And honestly, I've been holding out on a good first-person Zomboid clone for a while now, so I'm gonna keep an eye on this one. Anyways, that's enough rambling from me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Wait.
What?